Does tinnitus treatment last? I'm here with James, who successfully treated his tinnitus with our program at Treble Health. And many of you had asked me, hey, do your patients, once they treat their tinnitus, do their results last? Or do things relapse and are they just back to, suffering, having trouble sleeping, the loud ringing, the loud noise in their head again? So James is going to tell his story, a review of what he went through, and then where he is today after a year from stopping treatment for tinnitus. James, could you please give us a review of what you went through? And then we'll get to where you are today.
My story actually began in November of 2021. It was a sudden thing. I all of a sudden developed tinnitus. It was pulsatile tinnitus, which is a kind of a pulsing thing with your heart and with the beat of your heart. And it was steady state tinnitus as well. And it was totally unstable. That's the word I used because I never knew what I was going to get from day to day. But the first time I listened to it, I thought, well, this is just I'm having a bad day. My father had just died. There were a lot of things going on, but it didn't go away. It was several days later that I went to my general practitioner, and he gave me some tips on how to reduce stress. He gave me some Xanax, which absolutely did no good, and it simply started to get worse. And I know now that it got worse because I was so bothered by it. And as I got more and more worried about it, the sound bothered me more. The sound got louder, and it was a kind of a constant thing. And so I went to a neurologist, a dentist, a psychiatrist, a whole list of doctors, and found out that I had several things wrong that could have contributed to my condition, my symptoms, but didn't really land on anything. I had things like TMJ. I did find out that I had a eustachian tube dysfunction. Of course, I had a lot of stress at the time. We really didn't land on one thing that was causing it. But towards the end of that first year, I really was getting desperate. I thought, well, this is taking away so much time from my daily life. It's taking so much of my focus away from things that are important to me, things that I'm interested in doing, even traveling, things like that, that I finally had time to do after I had retired, uh, didn't look like any fun because they just looked like another opportunity to be alone on the beach and hear tinnitus. And so it got to the point where I realized I had to do something definitive about it. And I had seen some videos on YouTube, people from Treble Health that had talked about their experiences, and I listened to as many of them as I could, and I was really impressed. I was motivated hearing these people talk about their experiences, but I also had the question, how does this play out long term? Is this a long-term solution for these people? Or do they come in, they do some things with an audiologist and they feel better, and then they relapse 6 months after they're finished with their treatment? How does this really work out? And so that's why I'm glad that you invited me here today, because in my case, I can tell you that it has been a long-term change for me. The tinnitus retraining therapy that I did has been it's been a remarkable thing. It really was what got me within, I would say, a month and a half, to the point that I realized I was gonna get my life back. And before that point, I really had doubts. I doubted whether it would ever be the same. So, I can tell you that, from 3 years ago when it started, and then I waited a year before I came to Treble Health, and I don't advise that. I don't advise for people to wait that long. It really has been a remarkable turnaround. I keep using that word remarkable, but I don't know what else to say. I didn't expect the kind of results that I got. I hoped for them, and I worked hard with my audiologist, but I felt in the end that when I got to stage 4 of what you call habituation, I was confident that no matter what happened, I could deal with it.
Tinnitus retraining therapy sound therapy approaches mixed with cognitive behavioral techniques and mindfulness are the evidence-based strategies for tinnitus. And that's exactly what our team at Treble Health provides. So if you'd like to schedule a free consultation to explore which tinnitus treatment is right for you, click the link right there to book a free call today. My team will take care of all the next steps to help you. Now, back to the podcast.
I think I've told a lot of people, Treble Health kind of gave me a suit of armor for dealing with tinnitus. And I feel confident that, if I have a spike, I have my sound generators here for people who don't know what they are. These little sound generators fit behind your ear. I can put those in. I have my things that I've been taught. I do meditation. I do healthy eating, exercise, relaxation is really important. Getting enough sleep is important. And a lot of times when you're in the initial stages of tinnitus, you're not getting enough sleep, and that's contributing to hearing the sound and being upset about it. And then you have to have your questions answered. I think one of the things long term that helped me as far as coming to Treble Health is that I had audiologists who would explain to me what was going on. I was taught through TRT the anatomy of the auditory system. I was also taught that tinnitus is caused not just by the auditory system, but by other systems in the body as well. And that was quite eye-opening in the beginning because I thought it was all ear related. I want to tell you what's going on with my ears. You know, and it was very frustrating because people who hadn't had it, and I guess that's most of the population, would they'd say, "Gee, that's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that," but they really didn't understand the full. They didn't get the full import of it. I remember I was at the grocery store one time and I ran into a friend and we started talking about tinnitus and found out he had it, and the cashier overheard us talking, and she said, "Are you hearing voices, honey?" And I realized what she was getting at. She thought it was a psychiatric condition, and I had to explain to her, "No, this is not a psychiatric condition. This is something that's actually organic going on." And I tried to explain it to her, but she really didn't get it. And I think that's one of the things that we face after we get tinnitus is that, friends, family, a lot of people in our lives don't really understand. And even if they can understand, they don't want to, they want it to just go away.
Certainly.
And
Certainly. And I want to jump in with some data. So when you first met us, your tinnitus functional index TFI score, which scales tinnitus from 1 to 100, 1 being not a problem at all, 100 being the most severe problem. You came to us with a 64 out of 100, which is definitely a serious problem. The subscales that scored the highest in terms of impacting you were a sense of intrusiveness, sense of control, cognitive interference, reduced interference with relaxation, yeah, quality of life reduced, and finally, emotional distress. When we jump forward about 15 months forward from there, the most recent TFI score that you had done, that was a 22 out of 100. So that's a very significant improvement. The final score there was about a third of where you started.
Yeah.
Once we measured it, and all of those subscales improved pretty dramatically. Emotional distress plummeted and is a much better score. Sense of control and cognitive interference. Of course, the tinnitus is not gone, right? So could you explain to us really, what did you experience over that treatment? Did the volume get lowered? Did you learn how to manage it better or both? And where are you today?
Yeah, the volume did, and a lot of people were concerned mostly with volume, but I was concerned with the distress that it caused me as well as the loudness of it. And both of those things went down over time. Within the first 6 months, I remember thinking, wow, when I started out, my volume, I would say, was 7 or 8, and it was down between 3 and 5 by that point, and sometimes I would have days with one or two, and gradually it actually got better. The volume got better as the distress decreased, and I think, that was telling with me because I did find that as I understood more of what was going on, as my, limbic system calmed down and wasn't having a field day every time I heard the noise, or should I say noises, it would be less and less, as far as the volume. Now, I will say that, yes, you're right. I still consider myself to have tinnitus, but it's back there somewhere. It's as if the brain has refiled it somewhere in the back filing cabinet where it's really not important anymore. So I a lot of times will go a long period of time without thinking of it. And then when I do think of it, it's more like instead of, "Oh my god, there it is again," the world's coming to an end, it's just like, "Oh, that again," And so it can be an annoyance, but it's not something upsetting or something that consumes you. And let me back up and say that the first thing I noticed when I noticed improvements, the volume certainly was going down, but I noticed that I had fewer spikes. And when I did have a spike, it was shorter and it wasn't as severe. The first time my dogs started barking so loud that, before I did treatment, I would have had a spike that lasted, a day or two. And I remember one night the dogs barked and barked, and I realized that there was no effect on my tinnitus when that happened, and that was the first clue that I had that something was changing, something was getting better. So that was pretty exciting, actually. And I know that was a circuitous route to a short question, but that's
Well, I have a follow-up. So this last tinnitus functional index score of 22, which is very good, right? For most people, if they got their tinnitus down to a 22 or relatively, a 2 out of 10, they would say, "Yeah, this is a success. I have a milder case of tinnitus. I can deal with this." So what has happened in the last year? Because for many patients, things will even get a bit better once even more time has passed. Um, you're not actively necessarily doing a treatment, but some time has passed and sometimes the tinnitus can get lower. Has that happened for you? What have you noticed in the last 11 months since we last measured your tinnitus here?
Yes, that has happened. It's happened slowly over time. I actually took about 18 months to do the tinnitus retraining therapy, and, that's kind of the maximum or the isn't that yeah, that's the year and a half is and I needed that. I've want
Not necessarily the maximum, but towards the end of the range. It can extend further.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, yeah, I've heard of people going longer than that, but I thought at the end of 18 months, I thought, "I can probably wrap this up pretty soon," because I feel confident at this point that the changes are gonna be permanent. And, yes, I have had a continuation of the, calming down, the quieting. I don't have as many spikes. Uh, I and by spike, I mean, I notice that it's there when it happens, but I'm not upset by it. It doesn't bother me, in any way. I can be driving along and all of a sudden I hear, I hear, well, I used to say it sounded like a pulsating jet engine in my head, and now that may be there, but it's way back here somewhere. I don't know how to explain it other than that it's almost not there. So I don't really look at it as a problem or as an intrusion in my life like I did before. And it seems to be getting better over time. So I think probably that tells me that I maybe could have done treatment longer than I did, and it would have, been beneficial for me. But with everything I was armed with, I think I've had a great result, and I think that I'm continuing to improve over time, continuing to understand this thing called tinnitus. And I've read Dr. Jastreboff's book a couple of times now. and I get a lot out of that. I know it was written mainly for clinicians, but it explained a lot of things to me, and I've looked at it a couple of times and found new things in it the second time around. So
Absolutely, yeah. Dr. Pavel Jastroboff, my mentor, founder of Tinnitus Retraining Therapy, wrote a book called Tinnitus Retraining Therapy, and it is helpful. There it is. James is holding it up there. It looks just like that. I believe you can find it on Amazon as well
mhm.
as online.
Yeah,
Um,
worth every penny.
so here's a question, because someone may hear this and they say, James, that's great, but took you a year and a half to get better? That's so long. I'm looking for something that's a bit quicker, but that's not what you said. You said the entire treatment window was about a year and a half.
Right.
So maybe a better thing to, confirm here with you is how much time until you started feeling better, noticeable decrease, and then maybe, I don't know, how many months did it take for you to get 50% better? Any ideas for that?
Yeah, definitely. It took about a month and a half, as I said before, for me to realize that, hey, I'm going to get my life back because this can only get better. So after about 6 weeks, I would say I had a clue that things were calming down. It was softer. The volume was softer. The spikes were shorter and less loud. Things were happening already, and I think by 6 months, by the 6 month mark, I would have been probably down 50% by that time, and that was a surprise to me. Now it took a while after that for me to get to 75%. In fact, I think we did a podcast where I was at 75%, and that was a real milestone because it's kinda like losing weight. You plateau, and you can go for a while before you make more progress, but I would say that, even though my total timeline was 18 months plus for treatment with Treble Health, when I look back over the first year without treatment, uh compared to improvements every few weeks with Treble Health, I have to say I don't know what I would have done without Treble Health if I had just been out there on my own. I'm glad I found it because I would probably still be, I don't know. I don't even want to speculate. It wouldn't have been pretty. So I think, you know, it's worth every minute that you spend. It really is. You're going to see results, at least what I'm hearing people say, and my own experience is that you see results long before that. And then you improve over time. And I think the more you solidify those changes by repeated behavior, the meditation, if you do exercise, the relaxation techniques, all of those things. And Treble Health gave me a lot of tools. Your meditation videos, that was one thing. And I've never been good at meditation, but I really took off with those. And one of them, I think my heart rate went down to 45 or something. And I said, okay, this really works. This is something I can do routinely. And so I really felt like, Treble Health gave me not only the tools, but they gave me the encouragement. That is so much when you have somebody on the other end who, by the way, Dr. Matthews, my audiologist, has tinnitus, and and several of your audiologists do, and so they have an intimate understanding of it. And an audiologist who doesn't probably isn't going to have that depth of understanding, or
Absolutely.
you know.
Well, for anyone who is interested in having a consultation with a doctor from Treble Health, we'll put a link right there on the screen where you can book a free call with a doctor from our team, and we can personalize different options for you in terms of next steps and potentially pursuing treatment, like James. James, any final words here for the tinnitus community? Hope, optimism, just anything else you want to share to those people who are in that first year like you were, or in those first few months when they're trying to understand how to move forward?
Absolutely. I would say don't hesitate to call Treble Health. Do what I did. Pick up the phone, get your keyboard out, get a hold of Treble Health and book a consultation because it will change your life. Like I said before, I don't know where I would be if I hadn't done that. I think Treble Health made a difference in my life that's a permanent difference, and it can do the same for you. I think there's one size doesn't fit all necessarily, but there are other options for treatment as well. And I think, Treble Health is qualified more than anybody else out there to get you where you need to be. And you may not be tinnitus retraining therapy; it may be some other approach, but they can do it. They have the expertise and the people and everything else to get you to your goal.
Thanks, James. All right, guys, we'll talk to you soon and see you later.
Thank you.
If you'd like to explore which tinnitus solution is right for you, book a free call with my team at Treble Health. We can meet over Zoom and discuss which option is the best fit for your treatment. Click the link on the screen right now, and we'll see you on the free call.